Okay, so we are about to begin our virtual Build a Better Breakfast workshop. So, a very common culprit in health coaching within the nutrition area is better breakfast foods. Or sometimes just breakfast, period, if it's something that you might not always have time for. So, we want to make sure that we give you some ideas for healthy, on the go breakfast meals and snacks. And this is a really common one back, I think it was in April when we first launched our Wellbeing Wednesday virtual session. Courtney and I talked about nutrition and breakfast during one of those classes, and these mini egg bakes were one of the hot topics that session a couple months ago. So we wanted to kind of bring it full circle and feature it today for our August, not October yet, but soon, for our August virtual workshop. So I already prepared a batch. As you can see, they turned out pretty well. This was my test run. I do make these from time to time, but doesn't hurt for a little refresher, always kind of learning and tweaking stuff. So I have a couple tips from this recent batch that I'll pass along to you today. And then I'll whip up a new batch as well with you if you want to prepare along with me. Yeah, Courtney, they are really good. And actually, I don't know if you noticed, you probably didn't get to, unless you're really fast at counting, during my little display here briefly, but you may have noticed that it looks like there's one missing, which there is, because Nick got home from work a little while ago and walked in the kitchen and said, something smells really good. And he looked and he's like, are those for me? Totally typical. I know everyone can probably relate to that. And I said, well, yes, but don't eat all of them just yet. I need them for display for work in a little bit. And he's like, well, I'm just going to take one. And he's like, this is really good. So he approves. That's a good sign. But still, I always want to tweak and perfect after I make anything. So learned a couple things from that, which I'll talk about in a minute. So if you are, like I was saying, going to prepare along with me at home, that's great. I have 8 eggs. So for these mini egg bakes, if you have a mini muffin tray, that's best. I like that because, like I mentioned in the invite, the calendar email invite for today, I like the mini egg bakes because they're kind of pre-portioned. You can also just pop them out and throw them in the freezer, and they reheat really well, especially in a microwave or a toaster oven. It brings them back to life really well, so you don't really lose any flavor that way. As far as the breakdown of how much of each ingredient to use, I'm a very fly by the seat of my pants type person. So like I mentioned, I like to tweak and maybe change things from recipe to recipe every time I make it. However, I have tried to quantify some of this for you. If there are those of you that prefer exact measurements and numbers to things, I can certainly appreciate that. So I will cover those right now. So for the muffin tray of 12, so there's 12 little muffin sizes in this tray. I've found that 8 eggs, kind of the normal large grade A white eggs, seem to fit perfectly after you put them in a bowl, mix them up with all the ingredients into the 12 muffin tins. So I've already got my 8 eggs cracked and emptied into this bowl here. I figured it wouldn't make very good TV to watch me sit here and crack an egg 8 times. So I did cheat, and I did that before our class started. But a tip I wanted to share, and the reason why I stopped where I did, is because something else that we run into with health coaching are a lot of obstacles and a lot of challenges that may keep people from trying something new, maybe feeling outside their comfort zone. And I always try to just be very, I guess, open and real with people and let them know and let you know that just because I'm a health coach does not mean that I'm perfect. Case in point, I don't have a whisk. I've never owned one. Probably when I was younger and living at home and cooking with my mom and helping her out in the kitchen, I know she had one. I've used them before, but just never bought one myself. And that's maybe surprisingly, maybe not surprisingly, been something that's come up when we talk about how to meal prep is, well, I don't have that tool or I don't have that exact thing. So, it's not going to work for me. Not true. When there's a will, there's a way. So I have a fork. I've gotten pretty good at just when it comes to eggs, especially sticking the fork in here, kind of going yolk by yolk. And then once you stab each yolk with the fork, and regardless, if you have a whisk or not, maybe it's dirty, maybe you don't feel like dirtying another thing. So you just want to kind of condense tools and utensils and use a fork. That works just fine. So once you poke each yolk with the fork in the bowl, then you can kind of just start gently going in circles and up and down and left to right with the fork, just making sure that those yolks and whites are mixed up really well. And we're going to do this again after we add the other ingredients, the veggies, and here in the seasonings. So this brings me to my next point, which is there is no right or wrong way on how to make your little mini egg souffles or your egg bakes. You can put in whatever ingredients you want. I like onions and mushrooms and broccoli. You can do, one of my girlfriends, just a couple weekends ago, I went to visit her and she had potatoes with the same three ingredients, with the onions, mushrooms, and broccoli, that she added potatoes. Really good. I'm just going for a bit lower carb option. And that tends to fall in line with what I recommend during my coaching, mine and Courtney's, wellness coaching and programming sessions as well. So just to keep in line with lower carb, we're skipping the potatoes today, sticking with the veggies. We get some nice fiber in there with the broccoli. So we got those eggs kind of whisked up with our fork. Going on to the mushrooms, I like Baby Bella or cremini mushrooms. They're super cute and yummy, and we usually have them in the house, especially if we're having something on the grill. I'll dice up some onions and mushrooms and saute them with some olive oil over the stove. Really, really good. So we have those here. I've got a new pack. I used for 8 eggs in 12 muffin tins. I've got, I would say about a third of a cup. Yeah, it's between a quarter cup and a half cup. So a third cup of diced mushrooms. So remember that that's after you've cut them up, not a third cup of straight out of the package. So I'm going to slide this roughly third cup of diced mushrooms into my bowl. And that's ingredient number 1. Number 2, going right on down the line. I don't know if you can see my cute little chopping board here. I'm really proud of it. I got it from a friend in college, and these are my favorite. If you've ever seen, it's not like a regular cutting board. It's not plastic or wood. It's not like a thick plastic. It's a thinner plastic, but it's like a paper plastic. And it looks, like I said, pretty thin. You would think maybe it's too flimsy or dainty to stand up to being, chopped on with a knife regularly. But like I said, these have lasted me since college. And I have them in different sizes. That's been like one of the best things that I own. So if you're looking to condense space and for maybe a bit different cooking or cutting board alternative, look for the thin plastic kind of flexible cutting papers. They're really great. Okay, so on my cutting sheet here, I'm going over to the broccoli next. I love broccoli, and I used broccoli florets. I have a little list here of tips I jotted down so I wouldn't forget to share them with you. And don't worry, these will also be included in the email that I sent out to the group after our recorded session today and along with the recording. So you don't have to be taking notes, but but I did. So on my notes, I wanted to pass along the tip that for broccoli or really any vegetables, if you are using frozen veggies, like I used frozen broccoli, it's something that I like to have on hand at all times. However, like everything else, it has an expiration date. And so if we want to have, broccoli around, but keep it from going bad, maybe we'll toss it in the freezer. Totally fine. It thaws and reheats great. But the tip I wanted to share with you is that we want to make sure that if we are using any frozen produce, that it is completely thawed before we throw it into our egg bowl mixture here to be baked. Because if you're using a still kind of frozen, not completely thawed, whether it's meat or a piece of produce, that's going to release a lot of water once you expose it to heat in the oven, and then you end up with kind of a runny consistency to your egg bake or whatever it is that you're making. So make sure that you certainly can use frozen produce, just make sure that it is thawed before you pop it in the oven. So like I said, I love broccoli, got about a half cup of it. I use the florets, so not a lot of stems in this. Just gonna toss them right in there, and I cut them real fine, as small as you want. I say with all of these, especially for any type of recipe you're making with a muffin tin, the smaller you cut it, the better, because you're working with such a small space to begin with. Of course, with these individual serving sizes with the muffins, we don't want to be having big chunks of vegetables and stuff in there. It kind of throws the texture off. So nice and small, and then that'll help it get really soft and a really nice texture as it bakes. So the third ingredient on my list for today's recipe is an onion, and I used a Vidalia or a sweet onion. And that's just kind of by preference. You can really use, again, anything that you want, any type of onion or no onion. But I used about a third cup of onion as well. So same as the mushrooms. So again, it was about a third cup of mushrooms, half a cup of broccoli, back to a third cup of onion. We've got these guys diced up real nice and small. Put those in there. All right. So now I can kind of show you what this looks like. You should see some really pretty colors in here. Tilt this down a little bit. So we've got the bright yellow from the eggs, bright green from the broccoli, and see how I'm kind of just folding it. I just want to make sure that we coat all of the veggies that are chopped up in here evenly with the egg mixture. I'm trying not to let any clumps of veggies form within the bowl here. This is always relaxing for me. Just enjoying the peace and quiet. Maybe you have peace and quiet in your house right now too, or maybe you don't. Either way, just making the best of it, enjoying the time to make something yummy, healthy for your body, for your family. All right. I'm pretty happy with how that's folded and mixed in there. What I'm going to do next, making sure my melted butter doesn't harden up on me. What I'm going to do next is add the seasonings. This is preference. I've seen people do this both ways where they'll add the seasoning. I have salt, pepper, and garlic powder. Some people will add the seasonings to the bowl. Some people will do a dash of the seasonings separately into each muffin tin. I am kind of a speed demon. I want to do things. I'm all about efficiency and simplicity. So I will add them to the bowl here. And again, I don't necessarily measure. That's just me. Again, kind of practice doesn't always make perfect. It just, makes a habit, right? So whatever habit you're in of adding seasonings here, you can kind of eyeball it. mix it a bit more. Whenever I'm adding seasonings, whether it's to a liquid mixture in a bowl or guacamole, which I love to make guacamole homemade. I've yet to have a store-bought guacamole mixture that I've actually liked. I don't know why. I don't think I'm that picky. I think I just have a palate that is maybe used to homemade things. So I make a lot of this stuff from home, and as I do, I just kind of learned, add seasonings, make sure that the top has, again, all about evenness, so nice, even, thin layer of seasonings on the top, and we just fold it in again. Oh, and as you're doing this, should have mentioned this before, it is written down on my sheet notes over here, although it is at the end. So I did not put that in chronological order. However, if you are making this along with me, and if you haven't yet, go ahead and take this opportunity to preheat your oven to 350. We have gas at our place. I know gas can sometimes cook more evenly and heat up faster than electric. So just, it'll vary by what you have at your place and where you're making this. But when I was doing the practice batch run before, earlier this afternoon, I started to preheat our oven. It was at about this time, and it was ready when I went to pour it into the muffin tins and then put it in the oven. So, if you have gas, maybe you can quick preheat your oven if you're preparing it along with us. If you don't, I apologize to give you a head start for those that might need a bit more time to preheat your ovens, but it's okay. If this sits for a couple minutes while you're waiting for your oven to heat up, it's not going to change anything. So we've got the garlic and salt added. I'm going to do the black pepper. And we happened to just run out, like on Sunday, of fresh garlic, which I would normally mince and then add to this instead of powdered. And just have not gotten out to the stores this week to get more fresh garlic. That'll be this weekend grocery shopping list item. But that's why we have our good old backup powdered garlic. So comes in handy in a pinch, pun intended. If you have been on any of my emails in the past, especially the current one with August Sit Less and Move More challenge we're doing. I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago. Oh, I think I had 2 or 3 puns in the email. I crack myself up. You have to these days just laugh at everything, even if it's not funny, which a lot of the time I'm not, but I laugh anyway, and it helps. So I recommend it. Hope that made you smile at least. I've got everything mixed up in here that I would like. So to my next tip, what I was checking before in this cute little bowl here is my melted butter mixture. And this is one of the tips that I was referencing at the start of the video from my practice batch. So I always use olive oil or coconut oil whenever I can. A little bit healthier, good fat alternative to butter. However, when I used the olive oil to coat the inside of my muffin tin here, it kind of made the egg mixture stick. It didn't burn, but it wasn't as easy to pop out with my little mini spatula at the end as I thought it would be. So I'm going back to butter. I've used butter with this before in these little muffin tins, and it's just worked better for me as far as being able to pop these guys out at the end without leaving any of the yummy egg bake behind. So what I'm doing right now, and this will be on my my cheat sheet notes that I send out and share with you guys after this, is I have a little bit of melted butter in this dish. It was just literally just one pat of butter, so just one little like tablespoon size of butter. Melted it for I think 20 seconds in the microwave. And then I've got one of these silicone brushes, got two of them actually. This is a tool that it's my ride or die. I use it for a lot of things. So a whisk I can live without. That's where forks come in. But I haven't really found anything to substitute a silicone brush yet. So if you know of anything, let me know. Might come a day where I don't have this. So I'm just going around to each individual muffin tin. Fingers, yep, yeah. I've definitely done fingers too. And it works better too if if you're using your fingers to grease any tray with. If what you're using to grease isn't completely melted, I've found like butter, it's almost better if it's like room temperature, and then you can take your finger and take like a little bit of it and then move it around as you need it instead of working with so much liquid. But yeah, fingers are always good. Hand, right? We have thumbs, we have hands. We're civilized humans, creative with our hands. We'll find a way. Okay, so that is all buttered up. Good to go. Put that off to the side. And I kind of just flashed this in front of the camera before, but this is a cute little mini spatula. I like this guy for any kind of recipe that I make in a muffin tin, because it's smaller and it can more easily fit in these small spaces, whereas kind of like a regular full-size spatula is a bit bigger, and it's kind of big and clunky to, it's like the whole thing is the size of the muffin tins. So this won't tear up your works of art that you make in here. So keep that off to the side until later. Another tool tip is a toothpick. Again, you don't have to have a toothpick. A fork, again, works really well. The prongs of a fork for when this is done, or to learn when it's done. You just stick the toothpick or the fork or the knife, is another thing you can use. I always try to go as taught, look for the biggest, the thickest piece that you have. Stick the tool in there. When it comes out clean, that's when you know that it is done. If it comes out and it's still kind of wet or runny and there's stuff on it, then you know it needs a couple minutes yet. So if you've got your oven preheating to 350, mine already is because of my practice run I did before this, so I'm all good to go. But if your oven is at 350, then that's good. You want to make sure that you have a rack on the middle height. So another tip that I learned with these is that if you put them too low on a rack that's too close to the bottom of the oven, it will burn, or it'll get really crispy on the bottom and not on the top. And that's just sort of a weird consistency to have. So make sure that you put these at least on the middle rack, maybe even on the, not the highest, but second to top rack. We don't want the cheese on the top to burn, but we don't want the bottom to burn either. So I'm going to go ahead and pour this into my muffin tins now. Oh, it's so pretty. I just love all of the bright colors, yellows and greens. Maybe it's because I'm a Packer fan, but just looks really appetizing to me. Actually, this is something, when I was making this before, I thought, wow, how great is it that it worked out this way? For the fork to use while you pour the mixture into the muffin tins, you can use the prongs of the fork to kind of wrap around the egg. It's egg when you beat it is still kind of like stringy and a little clumpy. So the fork prongs work really well to kind of scoop those up and keep them from dripping all over the tray as you move. to each muffin tin. So again, this is 8 grade A large eggs in 12 muffin tins with half a cup of diced broccoli florets, 1/3 cup of diced Vidalia sweet onion, and 1/3 cup of baby bella or cremini mushrooms. And in case you're thinking, what about the cheese? Don't worry, got the cheese. Good Wisconsin girl, never forget that. Let's save the best for last. So that's coming up after this. And I go, I kind of tested this out earlier, which is why I did a practice run. I like to go a little bit more than halfway, like 3/4 full with each of these. So I tried it a couple of ways. Filling these muffin tins only halfway it didn't like rise quite enough. They were kind of like cute but sad, little egg bakes, and then going all the way to the top. It was fine. They did continue to rise and bubbled over a little bit if you want. I guess I would recommend personal preference. If you are making these and you want them to have that muffin top kind of lid over the top, then I would fill them all the way. Just be prepared that they will bubble over. And hopefully they stop at a good point. But to play it safe, I go 3/4 full. So there's, I would say, about a 1/4 inch gap distance before these get to the top. So nice safe distance, because like the good Wisconsin girl that I am, we want to save room for the cheese. Now I know on my recipe I said cheddar cheese, which, okay, you can do any cheese you want. It doesn't have to be cheddar. We have cheddar jack here because if you might be able to read, I'm not sure if you can see that far away, but that says Kirkland. We love our Costco membership here, so we have lots of Kirkland things, which means we have lots of bulk items, and this is a bulk cheddar jack shredded cheese mix that we have. This is our go-to for everything from Mexican to breakfast to Italian food. It just works well with everything, so that's a good staple. However, because we do have mushrooms in this, and I thought, you know what, instead of cheddar, which goes well with this as well, and you can use it, cheddar and eggs I think are a great mix anytime. I thought, well, we have Swiss, we got to use it up. That's kind of what this whole workshop is about, is just using up what we have around the house. So again, it doesn't have to be these ingredients that I use today. You can be creative. We encourage that. We encourage you to be crafty with what you have in the house to keep those things from going bad. As Courtney, I'm sure, can attest, that is another very common obstacle, I would say, with health coaching and eating healthy is, but healthy food is so expensive, and then it doesn't last and goes bad right away, and then we lose money. Well, yes and no. There are definitely, like I said before, there's a will, there's a way. There are definitely ways to keep that from happening, and this is one of them. So I am just going to add a cute little dash of shredded Swiss cheese to each of these muffin tins. And really the only tip here, thing that you want to be aware of, is just maybe making sure that you don't get too crazy with the cheese. And we want to keep it, I mean, you can definitely add as much as you want, but we just want to keep it kind of contained to the egg mixture. Obviously, when we put this in the oven to bake, if there are strings of the shredded cheese hanging over the side or left up on the top here, the flat surface of the tray, it's going to burn. Let's just avoid that. All right, perfect. So that takes care of that. I think we're all set to pop these bad boys in the oven. I'm just going to check my cheat sheet over here. So bake at 350. Okay, my next prompt. So bake at 350, middle rack or second from top rack. Oh, it smells so good. Okay. For at least 15 minutes. Again, checking. I pulled them out, I think, it was like 18 minutes for my test run, and checked them with did my toothpick trick, and 18 minutes for me was perfect. So it might be different for you. I say between 15 and 20 minutes, again, depending upon if you have gas or electric or what level shelf you put them on in the oven. Maybe if you have a toaster oven, which we do, but it doesn't fit the size muffin tray that we use today. So go ahead and set the timer or watch the clock. We ended right on time, so 5:15. These should be ready if you prepped them along with us. And like I said, about 15 to 20 minutes. So go ahead and keep checking those. Remember, when the toothpick or knife or fork is pulled out of the thickest one and it's clean with nothing on it, then they're all done and ready to enjoy. So if you have a mini spatula, these guys work great to get in those small muffin tin spaces to gently kind of pop them up. And if you don't, that's okay. Just work with what you got. So I'm going to pause now, and let's take any comments and questions. And I also have some additional recipes. I mentioned non-egg breakfast ideas that we would talk about, and recipes that I will feature when I send out these tips from today along with this recording. So if you're not a fan of eggs, totally fine. We get that from time to time, so we're happy to accommodate. But any questions or comments or tips of your own that you'd like to share? Courtney's on for attendance. She's got kids at home, so I'm not expecting you to. No obligation to chime in, Courtney.
Sorry if you shouted my name. There's a lot of noise here. I don't have anything to add. Everything I did was in the thing, but you did rock my boat with the butter instead of the olive oil.
Mm-hmm.
My goodness, I've even bought like silicone liners. I am excited to try that.
Yeah, and I've done that too. I love the silicone liners. The paper liners, for some reason, and if anyone is on the call that uses paper liners regularly for any muffin tin recipes, please let me know. For some reason, they always make me nervous. I always think, how can you put paper in the oven and then how does it not burn? Which I know it doesn't, but still, that's where I opt for the silicone muffin liners as well. Or butter in this case when olive oil doesn't quite work. Any other tips out there on that? Avocado oil spray, if you've ever tried that, which I have, is a good one too. Didn't have any of that in the house today. That's like a cyclical thing. Sometimes they'll have avocado oil spray, but it's not a staple, I would say. So my last few notes on here and tips that once again will be included with the email of today's recording. So don't worry about trying to memorize these, but you can add sriracha or salsa kind of drizzled on the top or on the side with these things. They're really, really good, especially if you kind of want a bit more of a kick. Depending upon what you put in these egg bakes, you can do them in muffin tin, or if you have a circular, like a pie pan to bake it in, which I mentioned at the beginning. One of my girlfriends who made this with potatoes recently, that's what she baked it in, was a circular pie pan. If you do that, and if you use meats and you want a bit, more flavor on the side, salsa or sriracha is great. I love avocados. Those are a staple in our house. To be honest, tomorrow morning I'll probably have one of these with a little bit of avocado sliced on the side. It's just so good. Especially if you love an avocado like I do. So if you're an avocado fan, these pair well with that. The last couple tips I mentioned at the beginning was making sure that any veggies and produce you use, if it's frozen beforehand, it's thawed completely before popping it in the oven, just to prevent it from releasing that excess water and getting runny. And then similar thing for meat. So I did not do any meat in here, which Nick was kind of sad about. He's like, I would have loved ground sausage or chorizo, neither of which I like. And he knows this. And I was making it today, so that meant I called the shots. But in all honesty, if he would have made it with those things, I would still eat it. So you can do, like he said, ground sausage or chorizo. You could do one of my personal favorites with eggs of any kind, omelets or these types of things, is like diced ham. Shredded chicken is also really, really good with this, and any other, kind of ground up lunch meat or cooked meat. Just again, make sure that it is cooked beforehand. That's not only to save you time cooking once you put all these ingredients together and put them in the oven to bake, but it's also to keep those things from releasing, again, their excess fluids, water or grease, into the egg bake, and then that can throw off the consistency. So just make sure that everything you're using is fresh and cooked if it needs to be cooked before baking. So any questions? Has anyone besides Courtney, because I know the answer, has anyone besides Courtney made these egg bakes and muffin tins at home before? We got some newcomers to this. That's great. Sometimes. Yeah. Yep. Thanks, Courtney. Yeah, Courtney added in the chat. She said sometimes if they've got extra things going bad that they want to save, they'll throw them into an egg bake. Okay, lots of people saying no. That's good. So I hope this gave you some good ideas. And then, again, I mentioned earlier, but just as a reminder before we close out, these can be frozen, which I think is my last and final reason why these are such a favorite go-to staple healthy breakfast prep meal, because you can make a dozen at a time, maybe more if you have, multiple muffin tin trays of like this, and then you can pop them in the freezer. And like I said, they reheat really well. Throw them in the microwave, toaster oven. You can have them in the car. If you eat in the car like I do when you're driving to work, some people have a no food in the car rule. I envy those people. I'm not one of them. They must have really clean cars. But I eat in my car, and it's really convenient. Just reheat it, put it on a plate, and away you go. And that way it's, gives you healthy food that's convenient on the run, and it takes away those challenges and temptations that might come up if you get hungry on your drive. So with that, I will give you the rest of your evening back. Please be on the lookout for the email with this video recording with the tips from my cheat sheet that I mentioned throughout today's virtual workshop. And then I will also be including some non-egg breakfast recipes. We'll have some smoothie recipes in there, and some more, I think, traditional oatmeal and type recipes as well. So go ahead and look out for those. If you have any other questions, suggestions, or feedback, please send them our way. We are happy to deliver any type of future virtual workshop or class that you might think of. So thank you for joining us, and have an awesome evening.